Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB. Or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware, including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Reece Deans of Creative Space Podcast, and how was everyone's Christmas? Was it really good? Did you get what you wanted? If you didn't get what you wanted, did you go into a bar humbug moment? Let me know, but I'm glad that I'm back once again for another podcast episode. It feels like it's been a very long time, and I just wanted to go off with a bang, leave 2023 with I'd say for me, one of the highest, and today's guest is none other than Richard Stanley. Richard Stanley is a film director who has done many music videos, and he has directed many horror films, including Dust Devil and Hardware and Color Out of Space. He is also he was supposed to be the original director for the 1990s film that became a production nightmare, and it ended up being the Island of Dr Moraeu, which featured Marlon, Brando, and Kilmer, so two of the Hollywood's biggest prima donnas back in the day. And Richard Stanley talks about his experience in trying to make the film and then getting fired and then trying to stay on as an extra. A lot of things. We talk about many things. We even talk about Welsh folklore, for crying out loud, which was fantastic. So guys, without further ado, I just wanted to say this as well from the bottom of my heart. I hope you all have a fantastic New Year's, and we'll see you all in 2024. But again, without further ado, it's me and Richard Stanley on Creative Space Podcast. And I've always been, being born and raised and obviously Welsh through and through. For a size of Wales with a population of 3 million, it's very surprising that the Welsh folklore is just as bizarre, wonderful, and very eye-opening in some ways. I've only heard so much of the Welsh folklore, and it's a shame that here we don't learn so much about it, because I think it would be very interesting to see the the myths and legends, the urban legends, the fantasy storytelling. I mean, for crying out loud, there's still the debates of King Arthur being Welsh and everything.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm just like, and I'm Welsh.
Yeah, and Merlin too, Merlin,
Yeah.
the miracle worker. Yeah, absolutely. And I've always wished that we could have more genre movies coming from Wales. So this is very regional, but I've actually got quite a lot of Welsh blood through my great granddad. So I'm part Welsh. Yeah, I'm kind of loyal to the land of the Red Dragon. I feel like Wales has really missed its opportunity for making homegrown genre product. Like, how come nobody has adapted any of the stories by Arthur Machen? Why don't we have a movie version of The Great God Pan yet?
Mm.
It's public domain. I mean, anyone can adapt it. The basic idea of Pan's daughter returning to get revenge on the patriarchy is still kind of topical. It would work. It's Welsh. It was written in Mackin is from Caerleon. But for some reason, everyone talks about Richard Llewellyn and they don't talk about the spooky guys.
No.
There's really good spooky material out of the Welsh hills that I think could really be brought to life on a budget by someone if they were of a mind.
Yeah, yeah. And we always hear, we always get a lot of people talking about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, purchasing a football club, and everyone's believing that, oh, this would be the perfect opportunity to come and bring Welsh folklore, Welsh culture to the attention of films. But a lot of people, I always say to a few people that believe that's going to be true, and I say it's not, because just because one invests into a football club, that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, here we go, you're going to get a Hollywood film based on Owain Glyndŵr. You're going to be based on um Camper Gwenllian. You're going to get all these things. Like, no, it just don't work like that. But the one thing I've always wanted to see made is, well, I tried doing it some time ago, but no, not like a film, but it was like a theater piece. And it was to do with the in Ceredigion, where, I don't know if you ever heard this story. It was how the Devil's Bridge was made. And the story goes that a woman lost her cattle on the other side of this river, and she couldn't get to it unless there was a bridge. And the devil happens to be in Wales to see the beautiful landscape of the country, sees this woman, goes, oh, what's the matter? And she goes, I can't get my cattle across this river. And he goes, I don't know how the story, if whether it be a day or within hours, he goes, I will build you the most beautiful bridge that you could ever possibly see, beyond your wildest imaginations. However, whoever crosses that bridge when I build it, I will take their soul.
Yeah, that's
And I just find that very. And then obviously she goes away, she comes back, she's brought a dog with her, and he goes, do you remember, whoever crosses this bridge, I'm going to take their soul. And she goes, okay, grabs a piece of bread, just throws it across the bridge, and the dog just runs across the bridge and went, there's your soul. And the devil's like, I am never to return. I've just been fooled. I am not taking a dog for a soul. I've been embarrassed. And the legend says he's never made a return to Wales ever again. And I always thought, what if there was a story that he would come back and wreak havoc? And I always thought that would be such a really interesting theater piece of movie to do. And it's still in the back of my head, but I just saw other things that have just driven me away to do other things.
That's a good idea. I mean, I think there should be more movies which bring on the devil as a physical personage because that was something that was super big in the 19th century and we've kind of stepped away from. There's room for it. I was complaining about this to my partner just the other night, why we don't have more screed Satans that I can really get behind. I mean,
Mm.
everyone's still solid gone on like Al Pacino in Devil's Advocate or De Niro in Angel Heart, but I kind of like Jonathan Pryce in Something Wicked This Way Comes, and
Mm,
to Houston and Devil and Daniel Webster. I'd like to see
yeah.
a cooler, funnier Satan who's got all the right moves and has all the right one-liners, and who's just shit hot on the dance floor and does all the things that that Satan
Yeah,
should be able to do.
yeah.
has
Do
all
you know what?
has all the best songs. We know that.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned Jonathan Price, and we're getting into the Welsh themes of it all because he's obviously a Welsh actor.
Yeah, I
So
love
we're,
Jonathan
we're
Pryce.
yeah. Oh, he's absolutely fantastic. I know he's we. I think one of the first films I ever saw Jonathan Price was I think it was Brazil. I think it was
Yeah,
Brazil, and I my grandfather was watching it, and I just happened to um, watch it, and I thought he was brilliant. And then he turned around and went, "Oh, he's a Welsh actor." And I thought, "Fuck off, is he really?" It's like anyone from Wales who graces the screens from Hollywood or from whatever, and every time you just say, "Oh yeah, that's a Welshman," I just automatically go, "Oh my God!" There's just big pride of just seeing anyone from Wales just grace the screens. It's just like, yes, well done, lad, die down.
yeah, we do. We surely need more, and
Yeah.
it's filled with opportunity. I think there's a lot of stories that haven't been told down there.
Mm,
And I got into it through the writer Arthur Machen, who was writing stuff in the 19th century. But that's also because had a lifelong obsession with public domain material, because generally no one will ever make a movie if it's just my name on the marquee. I need to
mm,
have H.G. Wells's Island of Dr. Moreau or H.P. Lovecraft's Color Out of Space in order to actually get people in the cinema. And there's a
mm,
wealth of amazing writers whose work is completely public domain that anyone is allowed to adapt. And yeah, Arthur Machen's from Caerleon um,
mm.
came to prominence with The Great God Pan, which I remember was described by a contemporary review in the 19th century as, quote, an incoherent nightmare of sex, unquote, which is one of my favorite reviews. and, um, but yeah, I'd like to see that, or the White People, or the novel of the White Powder, or the novel of the Black Seal, actually, come to television, or at least become a short movie somewhere.
Mm,
I think Machen was really good at reclaiming fairy lore and making it creepy again.
mm,
Like Lovecraft's commonly believed to have ripped off a lot of stuff from Machen,
mm,
particularly in Dunwich horror. In Macken's story, The Black Seal, he has this character of Gervais Craddock, who is half human and half fairy, who has come from miscegenation between the humans and the little people, who is
mm.
kind of an Lovecraftian character. And again, as a Welsh story, I'd love to see something like that. I'd love to see something with miscegenation between backwoods people and a whole subspecies that's been secretly living in the Welsh hills that nobody's noticed. And,
Yeah.
there's plenty of room to move. And then there's all the stories we get about the Romans in Wales.
Mm,
I'm fascinated at how the Romans around the Severn Estuary were converted to the local religion rather than the other way around.
mm,
That rather than converting the local tribal people to Roman gods, they were all converted to the worship of Nodens, the god of the Severn Estuaries. So there must have been a hell of a scene going on down there, and it was somehow strong enough to culturally overwhelm the Romans who got sucked into it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's rife for telling tales. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was just mentioning about fairy stories, etc., especially going down a dark path. I don't know if you are a fan of Doctor Who or not, but obviously there was a spin-off with Torchwood, and there was a specific episode where they journeyed through fairy folklore and how dangerous and evil the fairies are, and how they cannot be defeated because they will cause mass tsunamis. They will cause basically end of the world natural disasters, and it was just the most eerie and diabolical stories I have ever seen. Because towards the end of that episode, you had John Barrowman, who's playing Captain Jack, just trying to because they wanted a little girl, a 7 or 8 year old little girl, and says she must come with us. And he's like, no, what will happen if I say no? And they say, oh, we're going to cause. And by the way, massacred quite a few people in this story. And they go in, oh, we're going to cause great earthquakes, tsunamis, we're going to cause mass extinctions. And it was just the fact of just seeing the hero, all set in Cardiff, the hero just go in, I can't win here. You must take this little girl. And I just thought, freaking hell, talk about Tinkerbell gone absolute psycho. It's amazing. I don't know if you've ever were familiar with that story.
I never watched Torchwood, but from your enthusiasm, I probably should. I've heard quite a few good things about it over the years.
Yeah,
I mean, little people have had that habit of abducting human children and leaving changelings behind. And this issue of human little person miscegenation there was definitely a terrifying thing hundreds of years ago. And I guess that also probably would have led to people being unfairly persecuted. But yeah, fairies will do that, and I suspect they've been running the country for centuries anyway. There's no point trying to resist.
mm.
There's a weird slide area where fairy lore and areas with long fairy history tend to also develop UFO lore in the modern era. Like there's a lot of folk who have, believe in aliens in the like the Port Talbot area, for instance. There's been
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of UFO sightings down there.
yeah,
A lot of the fairy lore tends to fold into UFO lore. Aliens also abduct human children and leave behind implants, and are also always fetus farming and interfering with human DNA in a similar way.
yeah,
Places that were once warrens of tappers or fairy folk in the old days are now rumored to be underground UFO bases or part of MOD secret projects and things. So I'm fascinated at how so much of that stuff does bleed into the present day. It kind of changes its mask a little, but in essence, it's you can still recognize the
yeah.
outlines of the myth.
It's weird because when you mention Port Talbot, it's not just in the I think with Port Talbot because that's near the Swansea area, so it's either just the regions of South Wales, but West Wales as well. Because in the Pembrokeshire area, there was a military base. I think it was I gotta get this right now. St David's, the city of St David, or somewhere around there. So that's right on the coast, sort of on the coast near Pembrokeshire area, and there was a military base that was developed and from uh, from the mentions of my friend Mark Jones. And if he's listening to this, hi Mark. He was mentioning that it was a military base that was purely built and made just for UFOs and UFO sightings and everything. And it was just hearing all those sorts of things. And again, it's you just think a country, just a very tiny country within the United Kingdom, and it has so much that people don't know about. And it's like, my God, you not just in terms of folklore, but in terms of scary paranormal events or bigger stories that people just need to listen to, and it's just intriguing. And I was like, fucking hell. What have we done in the last hundreds and hundreds of years and centuries? What have we done for a small country like Wales? Oh my God.
Well,
It's
I
just
mean,
a
Wales has been so colonized and kind
yeah,
of environmentally raped that one of the main contributions to genre has ended up being just the sheer scale of the industrial decay and degradation. Like we shot the exterior long shots and hardware down in Port Talbot, which is what I was doing there. We couldn't afford to build a miniature city or to create a miniature Ridley Scott type Megapolis or Megacity One. So we just went and shot the skyline in Port Talbot, Bagland Bay, for the city of the future. And I recall that I think Terry Gilliam also credits Port Talbot for the inspiration on Brazil. He
mm,
says he was shooting a commercial or a music video down there near Bagland Bay, and suddenly the song Brazil came on the car radio, and it was simply the contrast between the music and the visuals outside the car window. He claims gave him the seed idea for the movie.
mm,
And they do say similar things for the spinner flight in Blade Runner. Certainly, when before they put up the trees along the end of the M4 on my favorite things was to crank up the Vangelis music and drive down that stretch of the motorway at night, particularly when the foundry were dumping their forges, and you got all that stuff with the gouts of flame and sparks rising up to the heavens, and it was several miles of steel foundry meets petrochemical plant meets toxic waste dump. Perfect location for low budget dark future Doctor Who type other worlds, plenty of quarries. There's a lot of good locations down there.
Oh yes, we get plenty of locations in Barry as well, because we've got Roman numerals and sightings where we've dug up. There was a lot of archaeologists who dug up near the coast of on Barry Island, and some of the scenes and locations just in South Wales alone is remarkable. Now, I gotta know one thing from doing the research. You have quite good taste in hats, my friend. A great taste in hats. Where did the love of the hats that you wear now come from? Was it something that when you were young that you just picked up one day and thought, I like these the hats? Where did it come from?
I was floating around, I guess, because I've always been a spaghetti western fan. Then I did the music videos and the early album covers for Fields of the Nephilim, the British group out of Stevenage. But the thing that really crystallized it was on hardware. We had a great old world film industry editor, like, who was the oldest person, the only responsible adult pretty much on the movie, apart from the first AD. There was a guy named Richard Bedford who had edited Absolute Beginners for Julian Temple. Richard was really old school and wore this huge cowboy hat and smoked this massive cigar. He was really excited to be cutting an action movie on 35mm again, because that was his dream. He was in remission from cancer, and then about 3 weeks into the shoot, he went back into surgery and fucking died in the operating table. His last words, the last message I got before he went under the anesthetic was, has Richard checked the cutting copy? I remember I was sitting in the edit suite when I got the word that Richard had died. They'd left his fucking Stetson behind in the edit suite. So I tried on the hat. Then I started wearing the hat during the shoot as a way of keeping Richard involved in the project, or keeping memory alive while we searched for a new editor and another new editor to try to pick up the pieces. And hardware was really the first time in my life that I was ever exposed to publicity or to the public. Didn't really see that coming. I never put my name on the music videos. I always credited the music videos to Shadow Theatre. Suddenly at the end of that movie, Richard Stanley was the name they've stuck on the movie, and suddenly my photograph was out there. Richard Bedford's hat just was part of the scenery at that moment. I surmised at that point that people would probably remember the hat more than they would remember my name. So I hung onto the hat just for the purposes of kind of making myself a little bit more indelible in the public eye. I'm also kind of fond of cartoon characters. I've got a few friends who haven't changed their look for the last 40 years, and I really respect that, who just have like 100 versions of the same shirt and the same hat and the same trousers, and somehow manage to remain in continuity no matter what.
What's with the so where did it all begin with the love of filmmaking? What was it that really inspired you to go down that path and create not just music videos, but movie making as well?
That came early. I mean, I blame that on my parents. I mean, generally it's mum and dad who are responsible for messing up one's values the most. But yeah, my mum was a very accomplished artist. And I'm extremely good at what she did, and just be it watercolors or oils, and she was an absolute master. And her landscape canvases, stunning. But she would generally take a week or a couple of weeks to create a really great canvas, and I didn't have her talent. Both my sisters could draw better than me, and I guess as a little boy, I wanted to find something I could do that would be big and splashy, which would be easier. It occurred to me that I could just stick a camera on a tripod and take a time-lapse shot at the same thing and have a spectacular image I could project across the wall in a matter of hours, as opposed to taking a whole week laboring on it. So I suppose it was on one level, a cheap shot. And then that was coupled with my dad, who was a failed filmmaker, who had never really managed to go anywhere in the film industry. I think he'd been on the crew on the Alexander Korda production of Thief of Baghdad, and had left him with a strong impression. He had a 60mm camera and a bunch of editing equipment, which was floating around when I was 3, 4, or 5 years old. And I remember playing with the editing equipment and winching images backwards and forwards on the editor viewer. We didn't have television because I was growing up in Southern Africa in the 1960s and 70s. They didn't have television until a few years later. So I didn't get exposed to a lot of moving images beyond 60mm prints and Saturday matinees. So the first movie I saw was the 1930s version of King Kong. And I think that set me down a path where I figured I wanted to do something similar with my life to, say, Carl Denham and Kong, and go find something that no one had ever seen before, and preferably bring it back alive and stick it on Broadway and sell tickets. So these concepts, I guess, were ingrained into me by the time I was a 5 or a 6-year-old, and started at a very early age making crayon drawings in a sort of 1:8:5 or anamorphic aspect ratio, and sticking them together end on end and keeping them on toilet rolls. So I had lengthy, crazy movies that you could unwind in crayon form. Then graduated to Super 8, messing around with claymation, stop motion dinosaurs, and then by the time I was 13, I was socially articulate enough to be able to persuade other kids to get involved, and finally got human beings in front of the camera and made a caveman movie when I was, I think, 15, which started the move towards real world cinema. The caveman movie did very well.
Mm. Was there any particular director that you found influence by in not just in probably in South Africa, but anywhere in the world? It was because through my research, it says that on on IMDb, and I hope I get his name right, Dario
Argento.
Sorry, my handwriting is terrible, and my pronunciations. Dario Argento is one of your favorites. Is that true? And if it is, what did you find within his directing and his filmmaking?
The one and only, the inimitable Dario Argento, who's kind of a god. He's still alive and still working. Just acted in a movie for Gaspar Noé for his film Vortex, which is apparently good. Haven't seen it, so he's still active. He co-wrote the script for Once Upon a Time in the West, the Leone movie. And anyone who has a co-writing credit on Once Upon a Time in the West has my immortal respect. And I think he's one of the only living creative figures from that film left. And then, of course, pretty much pioneered and discovered what they call the giallo genre, which is a kind of a jumped up psycho thriller with very extreme violence and usually very, very big close-ups. I like his mise-en-scène. He has a habit of shooting right in here on people's lips and close-ups of zip fasteners, and then very, very big wides. I like the fluidity and movement of the Italian movies. Mostly because they weren't recording sync sound. There's certainly in the earlier material, the films were just a lot more I guess kinetic than their American equivalent. But beyond that, the thing with Dario is very specific. I spent the first 16 years of my life in apartheid era South Africa, which was essentially a police state where there was extreme censorship. Or not just political censorship, but censorship of supernatural horror, of violence, all forms of nudity, etc. And one of the first things that happened to me when I got out of South Africa was London in the mid-80s, is I bought a ticket to an all-day, all-night screening at the Scala Cinema of all of Dario Argento's movies, starting from Bird of the Crystal Plumage up to Tenebrae at that point. It took me all day and all night, and I saw them all for the first time on a big screen. It's Suspiria in particular, and seeing all that stuff uncensored on a proper cinemascope screen and loud made such an impact on me. I thought, okay, right, I'm going to do this. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try and do this. And then a few weeks later, I met Dario Argento. There was a sneak preview, sort of focus group screening of his latest movie, which was a film called Phenomena, that they eventually cut the hell out of and released under the title Creepers, with all of the main gore moments missing. But yeah, when I went to the sneak preview, I saw Dario loitering outside, looking very nervous. And I was amazed to see that to meet the guy, and I gave him a joint that I was smoking. He smoked the joint, and this relaxed him considerably, and he was very happy about it. And then asked if he could have my telephone number and contact details. Then a few weeks later, Dario got in touch. And so a situation developed where every time he was visiting the UK, Dario would need for something to smoke. And not knowing who else to call, he would phone me, and I'd go scurrying around trying to find dope for Dario. And this went on for a few years. Because of that, he passed me on to his first AD, Michele Soavi, who started making movies too, Stage Fright, La Chiesa, La Seta, and I also got to meet his daughter Asia. So this was accidentally a ticket into the weird world of the Argentos, and really fed into Hardware, which is strongly influenced by some of the films Dario was making back then and producing, notably Demons and Stage Fright, which are two films in Hardware's genetic makeup. I also got Simon Boswell, the composer of most of my work, came from those movies from the Italian films he was doing then. And first thing I did when I've completed Hardware is myself and Joanne Seller grabbed who was the producer of Hardware. We grabbed the first married answer print we could get from Technicolor. And we flew to Rome and hired a tiny preview theater and forced Dario and his brother Claudio to watch the film. I think they were pretty much the first people we showed it to, very young and eager and excited. I recall Dario didn't move the entire way through the screening and was kind of impassive and didn't seem amused by any of the gags. And I remember getting more and more nervous. At the end of the screening, just as he was leaving the preview theater, he turned back to me and said, "Oh yeah, your film, the reds, the oranges, the way the camera moves up and down, in and out is emotional, is psychological. I like." Going in the hug at that point, and that was maybe the first time I started to feel like a filmmaker. I'd met a lot of other people working in the industry in the course of brown nosing around London. Like I won an amateur film award on BBC Two, which was judged by Alan Parker, and I got to meet fucking Alan Parker, who shook my hand. I recall that Mr. Parker didn't even look me in the eye when he shook my hand. He was still busy talking with whoever he was talking to. And most of my experience of the British film industry was like that. So I guess Dario was the person who opened the door enough for me to start feeling that maybe I could be a filmmaker too, or actually belong to that world.
Yeah, but there's something I don't know what it is, because Dario Argento, I was only introduced by him, and I for the life of me I just could not get his name out. I don't know why. Probably because I just had a long day. But I was introduced to his work from university, and it was Suspiria that hooked me on, and I absolutely loved the original, not the remake, the absolute original Suspiria, and then I saw the demons, and I just thought, Jesus, where did this man come from? And I just thought, and obviously I saw, like, because there was something going through my head where there was westerns and then horror movies, and I was just thinking to myself, what makes the Italian filmmakers so gifted when it comes to creating Western genres and the horror movie genres? There's something that sparks and just stand the test of time. I mean, can you answer that for me? Because I can't. Silly. I just think they're all fucking great.
Yeah, and there was some kind of weird lightning in the bottle thing going on back then too, because they can't do it anymore.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, which is really strange. It's like at that point in time they were making the greatest films in the world, and there was also great Italian art house in the form of Fellini and Pasolini and Bertolucci. Just a lot of great stuff happening. Yeah, right now, thanks to, I guess, the economic situation and everything else, yeah, the Italian film industry flatlined really badly. And even Dario hasn't been able to do anything that's really worth watching in about 20 years. So, each time the movies come out, really strange and flat, even when it's the same talent pool producing them as in the old days. Very, very, very hard for the rest of us to figure out, yeah, what happened. But somehow at that particular time, like the late 60s into through the 70s, they were really shut hard. Maybe that's to do in some ways with the way they were shot, because I mentioned before they weren't shooting sync sound, so there was a habit of directors to talk all the way through takes. To be yelling at their cast members and directing them all the way through the take because nobody's keeping quiet. And Dario was also playing the music to the movies while he was shooting them. So some scenes in Suspiria, the score is very organic because he was already playing versions of the Goblin score on the set and coordinating the lighting and the movement to the music. And I believe Leone was doing similar stuff with on the spaghetti westerns, where often Morricone's score was pre-existing, or elements of it were already there, and they were literally acting to the music on the set, which is a more organic way of interacting with the soundtrack than we had in the West. The downside is it meant all the films from that period are completely dubbed. So there's lip sync problems on all of them. You sacrifice direct sound, and that also has a slight flattening effect on the performances. The performances are somewhat less nuanced as a result of being fully dubbed, and often the cast members are acting in different languages.
Mm.
On the spaghetti westerns, often people are, one is speaking in German and one is in Italian, and then the American lead is speaking in English, and it's a strange polyglot. So yeah, it does affect the performances, but the style is so fluid, and the marriage of sound and visuals is intensely powerful, particularly in Dario and Leone's work. I found that was something pretty unique. I think plus also just a desire to push everything to the max, to go so full throttle on things. Like the part of Suspiria that impresses me the most is the just the opening taxi ride, that he can take a sequence which is technically irrelevant or boring. The lead character arrives at the airport and catches a taxi to the ballet school. But wow, is it intense! The just everything from the the widescreen photography, the insane fucking score, and the crazy editing style, the manic close-ups, etc. It completely knocked me out.
I just love the with majority, especially Leone's way of style of filmmaking, but it's just the close-ups I love, because you get them. You just I love the any Morricone's music, especially in Sergio Leone movies, where there's a tense moment, but you just let the music do its work, and it's just simple close-ups and what they're going to do. And I just think, my God, the 60s and 70s, like you said, for Italian cinema in those two genres, especially more for the westerns, I think it's just captivating. And I think that's why in the night you got the 90s and maybe in the 2000s, or you look at Quentin Tarantino as well, where they take so much from those movies and plonk them into their own. It's just it's like everyone says nothing's original no more because you've had the greats in the 20th century. Now we got to try and catch up with them, I think.
Yeah, and it's also the time was so specific because what folk can't appreciate now. I mean, I guess we've got something similar with IMAX,
Mm.
but movie screens were so much bigger back then.
Mm.
Like the time of CinemaScope, movie auditoriums were colossal at once upon a time, and yeah, for those spaghetti westerns, just grow and grow. The bigger the screen is. I mean, a close up of Clint Eastwood's eyes is striking on television or on your cell phone, but when Clint's eyes are the size of a skyscraper staring down at one, wow, with the music really amped up, it's impressive. So I think the sheer scale of the CinemaScope presentation and how wide those anamorphic shots were is something that we also moved away from as movies gradually got squarer and fitted themselves down onto our consoles. The same thing I think afflicts Kubrick movies from that period, like trying to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey on a small screen, or just loses 90% of it. Those same images when they're the size of literally a skyscraper or a house or a way, yeah, very hard to argue with.
What is your opinion now with the horror movie genre today? Do you think it's lost its touch? Do you think it's gone in a different direction where it could be for the better of horror movies? Where do you stand with horror movies today?
Well, I mean, difficult to know because today is such a strange place. 2023, we've just come through the middle of a series of apocalyptic events that have basically turned our society upside down and sideways. A sort of combination of COVID, cancel culture, plague, war, and what have you. And on top of that, independent cinemas in just terrible shape as usual, with cinema screens dying left, right, and center, and it becoming kind of harder than ever to put together an indie movie. Everything is moving towards streaming and multi-episode television material. Getting a one-off genre movie off the ground is practically economically unviable. It always was. It was always hard. So
Mm.
I think it's difficult as ever for independent filmmakers to get their stuff made, and even more difficult to get it distributed. But culturally, we're still settling down. So culturally, after all the stuff of the last few years, no one's really sure right now what's safe to comment on. We're in a very difficult time in terms of subject matter. I mean, back in the 70s, in the period we're talking about, people felt much more free about going in any particular direction, and that's I guess including religious and political views. Films were in my book much more radical. In the way that they were also really attempting to monkey wrench society and throwing in difficult, sometimes irresponsible or crazy revolutionary ideas at the audience. And I do find people are more timid these days and much more frightened of offending people. I came out of the 80s and into the 90s when punk was still phasing out. So I had much more of a punk attitude where back in the day, I was deliberately trying to offend my audience pretty much with every music video, and I was frequently sitting down thinking, okay, how can I freak people out even more? And what's the single worst or the most offensive and the most ghastly thing that I can possibly do or say at this point in time? And nowadays that logic is tempered by a general fear that people need to conform to any number of stipulations in order to get themselves a streaming deal and get the material out there. We're not allowed to comment largely on current events. I mean, we look at the crazy number of insane movies that came out of the Vietnam War, from outright masterpieces to low end Mondo Bizarro exploitation garbage. But I can only wish that I was able to approach current world conflicts and tell those kind of stories now, because we certainly could, but we're just I think we're living in a time which is where everyone's being a little safe.
Mm.
Being too safe isn't good for horror. It isn't good for traumatizing people and seriously shaking them up.
Mm. Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware, including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valegewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valegewelryworkshops.co.uk, or even phone them at 07789 794248. Going into the so starting at the 1990s, you've had two films under your belt straight away. You had Hardware, which starred Dylan McDermott, and then you had Dust Devil. And just speaking about H.P. Lovecraft and H.G. Wells, and then speaking about a few other authors, I probably knew he's going to mention it, the Island of Dr. Moraeu with the filming. It was a passion project for you. It was like a 4-year project, from what I gathered in the research. What was it that you wanted to bring to the table that hasn't been done before when it came to the Island of Dr. Moreau? Because there were, I think at the time, there was only 2 films that they did adaptation. I believe around the time that you were developing your own version, or wanted to develop your own version.
Yeah, I guess it's similar to Lovecraft. There were maybe only 2 official movies, but the unofficial influence of Dr. Moreau was far wider. I think pretty much every movie with a mad scientist, talented genetic engineer, working alone on an isolated island and creating whatever kind of owes to Dr. Moreau. I think there's some Dr. Moreau DNA in Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
There were only 2 official adaptations, but the basic concept of washing up the desert island where there's a mad scientist who's been creating creatures, I think, is very deeply embedded in the genre, just like the color out of space idea of the meteorite that hits the farm and aliens come out of it. It's a very archetypal pattern that's been reproduced a lot over the years. So Island of Lost Souls, the Charles Lawton movie, is kind of watchable. It's a museum piece and Lawton's fun. But of the official adaptations, there's not a lot to go to. And I think Wells has been not very well served by cinema. But there's plenty of wild unofficial material, like say the various Filipino movies, Mad Doctor of Blood Island, Eddie Romero's Twilight People, test tube terrors, half man, half beast, all monster. Fun stuff. Sergio Martino's Island of the Mutations. So there was a lot of Italian stuff in the back of my mind. Obviously, when I was going in, I like Lucio Fulci. I liked zombie flesh eaters. I'm kind of a fan of Ruggero Deodato, the Cannibal Holocaust guy. So certainly, my Dr. Moreau is going to be a lot redder in tooth and claw than the previous adaptations. Beyond that, if there's two themes in Wells's material that haven't been addressed or hadn't been understood properly by certainly the film industry and by inference the public at that point in time. The one that remains the most relevant is the issue of animal consciousness. The idea that other living creatures are also conscious living beings capable of thought, emotion, and suffering, which I think remains a hugely hot button issue. Our relationship with nature and our uses for nature and the way that we try and bend it to our human ideas of an ideal world. Moreau is, in his crazy way, trying to create a utopian ideal world, a better world on the island. So that side of it, I think, remains as sparky and relevant today as ever. Then inherent within that idea of trying to reshape the wild or into the image of your own, what you project onto it into your own dream to try to create paradise or a better world out of the rainforest, really strikes at the core of colonialism. Moreau's definitely a colonial tyrant on some level, and the thing is attacking the colonial ambition, the whole notion of evolution being a kind of progress. Or the sense that humanity is somehow evolving or progressing towards a better thing, and that there is an ideal that we have any right whatsoever to to impose onto the world. So I felt that a somewhat more politically aware Moreau. There's a great cynicism to Wells's book. I mean, it does share some connective tissue with George Orwell's Animal Farm.
With your experience, and of course I think from my perspective, when doing the research, when doing the production of the Island of Dr Moraeu, that you were, I think, unfairly removed, because at the end of the day, from the project that has taken you 4 years to build up, and then New Line Cinema started taking the piss, I was just like, man, what the fuck were they doing? What was going on? When you started doing the casting, was it always originally that you wanted Marlon Brando to portray Dr. Moreau, or were there other people that you wanted but maybe couldn't have because they were busy or because you couldn't full stop? Was it Marlon Brando first, or was it someone in the back of your mind that you really wanted?
Yeah, and I had a very different movie in mind at the beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
when it first started life, I never thought it would be. It was still a huge movie in my mind, but I never thought it would be bigger than a $20 million budget. I couldn't foresee that it was going to go all the way up to $70 million, which I think it became before I exited. And originally it was a $15 to $20 million medium budget film, which would have been R-rated. Hence the emphasis on sex and violence. It would have been certainly the initial drafts were extremely strong, and I was very much hoping to try and do something along the lines of Fulci's zombie flesh eaters, or a Margheriti movie. At that point in time, I had Jürgen Prochnow, the German actor from Das Boot, in mind for Dr. Moreau. And in fact, talked to Prochnow about it, and had lunch with him, and we were that would have been the route I would have gone down. It was definitely a more lowbrow approach, but then I guess part of the problem was the initial script was too good. And yeah, particularly once I made common cause with Michael Herr, the Vietnam vet, who was a great writer, the guy who wrote Dispatches, which may be one of the best books about the Vietnam War ever. And also wrote Full Metal Jacket and the narration in Apocalypse Now. After Michael had finished improving my script no end, we ended up with a script which was, I guess, good enough for them to send to Marlon Brando. And the issue really with Hollywood and with movie making in general, and if there's one rule that I've learned throughout the entire process, is nobody ever reads the script. No one ever really reads the script. The script just exists in order to facilitate the deal, to be able to go out to cast. Then traditionally the film gets made because of the cast that the script attracts. But in the course of that process, I very much doubt that anyone, even the cast, ever actually read the script. I think Brando entertained the project because the Edward R. Pressman Film Corporation, I believe, parked $1 million in escrow. And you could see that the money was there. The $1 million would buy you time with Marlon Brando. And it's the deal hasn't really changed in the present day. I think $1 million will probably also get you a hearing from Nick Cage. It's I think content not applicable in terms of what's actually between the covers. The fact that it was co-authored by one of the Apocalypse Now writers helped get it over the transom. But at the end of the day, it was simply the rent money that drew Brando in. Then the moment Brando was on board, it became a magnet for other cast members. Suddenly everyone wanted to be opposite Brando. And I was able to package the thing very effectively. And very quickly I had Bruce Willis, James Woods, and a bunch of other tremendous people on board. That would have worked fine had we not lost Bruce. It was the point when I couldn't bring Bruce to the table. And I had to try and balance the math, which is how we ended up bringing Val Kilmer aboard. Then the point when when I lost Brando, after Cheyenne, Brando's daughter, committed suicide, Brando went AWOL, and I couldn't produce him. He wasn't available or even reachable by telephone by the time we reached day one. I was frantically in negotiation trying to persuade Robert Duvall to step in and take over, but I couldn't produce the lead man, and Bruce Willis wasn't there. So that meant that it devolved to Val Kilmer as being the 90-pound gorilla on the shoot, as he was then the main thing holding the budget together. Naturally, everyone did what Val wanted, which yeah, the film just started to go in its own direction. And when after day one, when it became clear that myself and Val had developed seemingly irreconcilable differences, the production was then faced with a simple choice of either shutting the project down and replacing the lead man, or replacing me. And as I don't think anyone was particularly interested in the script, the storyboard art, or the surrounding materials, it seemed like a no-brainer from New Light's point of view. I just stayed at the table too long. It's one of those card game things where you have a great hand and then gradually it goes south.
Yeah. Did you when you were you left or removed as director from the Island of Dr Moraeu, you didn't go home. You stuck around, and I just love the story how you just snuck back into the set with all the makeup and everything just to go, yeah, let's have a look. What's going on here? What was that experience like? Not just to go back onto the set and to have a look what was going on, but if you can correct me on this, but didn't you stay on a farm or something with a group of people and just got absolutely high?
Yeah, this is true, but only in a very bare bones kind of way. I mean, I am hoping to publish a book about it one day.
Oh my
uh,
God.
maybe another year. It very nearly happened a few years ago. There was a point about 5 years ago when I actually wrote a first-hand account of the entire experience. Um, it's been um, it's been sitting on the shelf. It's a book called Dangerous Gods that I very much hope will eventually emerge, which is the shocking truth about the Island of Dr Moraeu. And an awful lot happened on that movie that nobody knows about still. That
Mm.
happened off screen and out of the range of documentary microphones or cameras, things that nobody mentions in their interviews. I enjoy Lost Soul, the David Gregory documentary, but I should note that virtually everyone in that documentary is lying just a little,
Wow.
in different odd ways. It really, people are dissembling in slightly odd ways the entire time, usually to protect their jobs. So they're telling a version of what happened, but it's always slightly stilted, which amuses me when I watch it. Usually, they've rewritten the events to change their own role in the proceedings slightly. But yeah, what really happened was initially I tried to play it by the book, and actually accepted the deal. And the two Australian guys came and found me and took me and put me on the aeroplane at the airport in Cairns, and they flew me out of there. And I flew back to Sydney, Australia. And then in Sydney, I attempted to contact my agent who wasn't speaking to me, got a lawyer, and basically worked to file suit against New Line to try to act on my pay or play deal and get them to pay me the money they owed me for having broken contract in any number of significant ways. So I tried playing it by the book. But a water cooler rumor arose back in Los Angeles on set in Queensland that I'd actually never left, where people started to believe that I had fled into the rainforest and that I'd taken refuge with the Aboriginal community. I'd had a policy in the course of the movie to hire as many Aboriginal people as possible onto the film. Pretty much all of the Beast people on my watch were either Trobriand Islanders or Puku Yulanji people from Kuranda, who I'd cast the Beast people out of. I'd put the Buffalo Man, David Hudson, in overall charge of the dehumanizing process and the training process we'd been putting them through to become animals for the movie. And then New Line became very frightened that I was still out there somewhere in the rainforest, and they did a very terrible thing, which is their initial response was they canned all of the tribal people on the production. And they purged all of the Aboriginals and the Trobriand Islanders off the production and fired all of them, despite the fact that we'd been training them for months. And then they replaced them by hiring on feral people and hippies. The reason we ended up with such a large number of wasted drifters and people in the movie is they were all the people who were standing around when New Line basically changed out the Beast people. The reality was that I was in Sydney negotiating with the lawyer and with New Line's business affairs department, and not in the rainforest at all. But I still had a girlfriend on location in far north Queensland. And yeah, after about 3-4 weeks, I started wondering what was happening. And I wasn't getting any information out of the island. And so I hopped on a flight and came back. And when I landed in Cairns, everyone was fully freaked out to see me. Were under the impression that I was out in the rainforest organizing an Aboriginal army to attack the shoot. And there were security guards everywhere in the state of extreme heightened paranoia. And it was all kind of, oh my fucking God, what are you doing here? Uh, we were literally became afraid that if we stuck around Cairns, I'd get arrested, or they'd think I was trying to sabotage the production. So, in a state of paranoia, myself and my then girlfriend jumped in a hire car and drove out of Cairns, Queensland, broke down in the rainforest, and ended up staying with a bunch of tribal people out in the rainforest. And, yeah, moving ever deeper into the undergrowth. I'd walked away with a fair payday. I think I had something like 150 grand in pretty much in cash. There was a sack of marijuana. We had 2 dingo pups, and there were guns. And, we basically had everything we needed. We didn't ever really need to go back to the outside world. Um, so I was stuck there. I stayed there for I don't know how long. The days got brighter and longer. The rainy season passed, and I was pretty happy out in the rainforest for a period of time. And then one night I saw a fire further downriver. The next morning, went downstream to see who the hell was camping in such a crazy place where human beings never went, and found that there were a bunch of extras from the Island of Dr Moraeu, and who then explained to me that they brought in a new director, that John Frankenheimer was now on board, that they'd managed to restart the production, and that the rainy season was over, and they were going to attempt to shoot the movie, and they all had their kit as extras, and this is where the dog head came from, and the dog head and the paws were. Initially I was very bitter about the whole thing, and they insisted, no, man, you should come back and see what's going on. And pretty much talked me into it. And yeah, I'm very grateful I went back, because again, in David Gregory's documentary Lost Soul, James Spardoletti, Frankenheimer's first AD, is lying. Just a little, because he's the AD and he has to show that he was in charge of the set. So Spardoletti's got a story where he claims he notices me at the table because I'm never taking my dog mask off. But the reality of it was that actually, after about 10 minutes, I was able to take the dog mask off, because there was no one left on the crew who recognized me. Everyone had been fired. They'd fired all the extras when they got rid of the original cameraman. Yeah, the DP was a guy named Dario Argento, who's still very active, who shoots most of Ridley Scott's stuff now. Darius was my DP on the first Dr. Moreau, but was removed when I was removed, and he was replaced by Billy Fraker, who was Frankenheimer's regular DP. But of course, Fraker brought his own technical crew and his own camera people, so there was a full change out behind the camera, just like there was a full change out of the extras. And I think only there was one Australian third AD who was still the same guy, but otherwise virtually everyone else had been fired by then. The extra, the guy who took me on, he called himself Lewis, but I think that was a phony name. He'd been fired twice off the production already by then. He'd started out in the art department, got into a fist fight, and got fired off art department, came back as a driver. Was in fact the person who drove Firuza Balk from far north Queensland to Sydney.
Okay, now.
Yeah, when she ran out of the sushi restaurant and jumped into the car and said, "Take me to Sydney." It was his car, and he drove it to Sydney and then got fired. And then he managed to get re-employed as a beast person.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, it was full carnage. It was something. It follows the same lines as the story that folk are familiar with, but it was just in reality more detailed and more insane, and went on longer.
What was it like to see? The last question on Island of Dr. Moreau is you approached, I don't know who approached you, that Val Kilmer approached you, or you approached Val Kilmer and you were like, hey, I've been here all this time. What was the last conversation you had with Val Kilmer in terms of around the film production of the Island of Dr. Moreau? And does your feeling still, do you still feel the same now, years later, or do you have a different perspective of Val Kilmer today?
Yeah, I do. I mean, my last conversation with Val was actually at the wrap party. I stayed on till the end of the shoot, Then at the wrap party, I went back into my original white suit and my director look from the beginning of it. So yeah, I came out and basically was myself at the wrap. And Val did come up to me and apologized for our difference of opinion at the set, and had realized what a fucking mess it had caused and how it had effectively jackknifed the whole production, and led to the situation where we ended up with a movie that was I think considerably worse than anything that I could ever have turned in. I think Val realized that, so we kissed and hugged and made up at the wrap party, which didn't help. It didn't bring the movie back, but yeah, we did. We buried our differences at that point, and I would happily have worked with Val again. It's I think there's been a number of projects where I kind of every so often think, gee, that would be a good part for Val. So pretty much beyond that point at the stage in time. I mean, a lot of folk didn't know I was there during the shooting. There was a divide amongst the cast members between who knew I was on the set and who didn't. But I did spend a lot of my time. Everyone spent most of that movie sitting on their asses, because almost every day there was no shooting. There was something like 44 main unit days where not one shot was actually taken, where a setup never came together. So everyone would just spend the entire day sitting around in full makeup, melting in the sunshine and waiting for something to happen, day after day after day. So I spent a lot of time playing cards with Ron Perlman, who was a super good guy. It was kind of me and Ron Perlman and Bill Hootkins from Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Hardware. Was a good friend for a long time. Bill's unfortunately no longer with us, and Marco Hofschneider from Europa. So yeah, we spent a lot of time basically sitting around, telling bad jokes, playing cards, and just waiting day after day.
The next feature film that you were to go up, that was another thing. True or false? Was you considered directing Spice World?
Yeah, only very briefly.
Oh, thank fuck for that, mate. What was that about?
I don't know, too much cocaine, desperation. I did have the conversation, and I may have influenced it.
Right.
I just seen this really bad John Wayne movie on television where John Wayne's playing a tough American cop in London. There's a chase sequence in it where like every other shot is like got Buckingham Palace or London Bridge or some kind of touristic location. And I did suggest there should be a chase sequence involving a London red bus and a lot of and try to get all of the cliche tourist stuff into one Austin Powers style chase sequence, but which kind of does happen in the movie. So I don't know if that was an influence on Uri Fruchtman, the producer that I was having the meeting with, but I did have the conversation. I don't think it was ever serious.
When you did return to making your next feature film, which was of course Color Out to Space, I was really intrigued how you got Nicolas Cage on to do the filming, and it's just talking about from a few characters like Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando to Nicolas Cage, another character. What was that process like to get Color Out to Space off the ground, and especially to bring in someone like Nicolas Cage?
Well, me and Nick had prior contact in that I talked to Nick about Dust Devil years and years before, at the time of Wild at Heart. And that didn't go that way, but in a way I was kind of glad, because I was still in my head at that time trying to figure out whether the devil, because we touched on this earlier, the issue of the devil personified. And I figured he'd have to be fully rock and roll, have all the best songs and all the best dance moves. I was kind of figuring the devil would have to either be like Elvis or Jim Morrison or Clint Eastwood, and I ended up going the Clint Eastwood route, which I'm fully happy with. I think if we'd gone Nick, it would have been more like a crazy version of Elvis. So I'm kind of glad we didn't go that way. And but yeah, Nick stuck in my consciousness. Came back into the mix years later. I mean, every thing I've ever been involved with, certainly in the film industry, it was an accident. Happened accidentally, or went sideways in some kind of bizarre way. I don't think anyone would ever consciously allow me to make a movie if it wasn't an accident. And Color Out of Space was similar. It wasn't my idea. It just evolved that way. It's a classic public domain story by H.P. Lovecraft. And how that went was, I'll try and keep it as short as I can. Me and two friends were mucking around with a glow-in-the-dark Ouija board we'd bought from Toys R Us. And we asked the Ouija board what we should do. The Ouija board came back with this idea that we should make a short movie called Mother of Toads. And in fact, dictated the entire script for the 20-minute short. So we ended up shooting this short in Montsegur, which became the opening segment of an anthology film David Gregory put together called Theatre Bizarre, and got some exposure. The entire budget of the short was 20 grand. Every one of the shorts in Theatre Bizarre was allotted 20 grand. And when it was put together, the guy who had put up the money, who was the impresario of a concrete company. He was a man named Daryl Tucker, who was the CEO of the West Virginia Concrete Company, who had actually funded the making of it, was so impressed with what we'd managed to do with the 20 grand that he flew out to the location to Montsegur in the French Pyrenees, where I'm currently based, with his girlfriend. To see the locations from Mother of Toads, and they were knocked out by the place. On the spur of the moment, he proposed to his girlfriend, and she said yes. So he was in a super good mood. Then he said, "I'll tell you what, mate, if you write a feature-length movie set on a single farm in the forest with the same kind of dynamics as Mother of Toads, I'll give you the money to make it." And he thought if we could make a 20-minute movie for 20 grand, we should be able to make a 100-minute movie for 100 grand. It seemed like a reasonable calculation. And I thought my first reaction was, great. Well, I just found out that H.P. Lovecraft's work was in the public domain, because Mother of Toads is adapted from a Clark Ashton Smith story. And in the course of checking the copyright on the Clark Ashton Smith story, I'd realized that so many of the the great weird tales of the 20s and 30s were free for all, open to anyone to adapt. I mean, why there haven't been 6 Calls of Cthulhu by now, I don't know. But so my immediate reaction was, I said, great, I really want to do Dunwich horror. Can we do Dunwich? Daryl, the concrete company's CEO, for strange personal reasons, said, "No, you should do Color Out of Space." And so, what do you want to do that for? It's like a really old story. How can I do anything with a color that you can't see, and a meteorite that hits a farm and a farmer in dungarees who comes out and pokes it with a stick? How am I going to make that work? But Daryl was emphatic that we should adapt Color Out of Space. And so, yeah, it was not my idea. I was totally broke, needed the money. And he was prepared to front 10 grand for a script, and needed the cash. So I think there was something like 2 grand up front on signature. So took the money, and we wrote the script in Montsegur, did the first draft. Took about 3 months, I guess, to turn it around. And by the time we'd finished writing it, as far as I recall, Daryl was by then in rehab, was unable to pay for the script. The money was all gone. I was still broke and starving, and I think David Gregory, who had brokered the deal, stepped in, felt sorry for us, and said, "I will tell you what, I'm sorry that happened. I'll pay for the script." make good on Daryl's deal. So yeah, David at Severin ended up with the rights to the screenplay. Then subsequently, at the time, Lost Soul landed, sold the screenplay, moved the screenplay on. The screenplay ended up in the hands of Spectrovision, who were making Mandy with Nick. At some point on the set of Mandy, Nick, in conversation with the line producer Josh Waller, mentioned that he was a big Lovecraft fan. And Josh, desperate to try and cut a deal, remembered that there'd been a Lovecraft script floating around somewhere in the office, and managed to grab Color Out of Space and press the script into Nick's hands. And then they needed to get some kind of, they couldn't get an LOI, a letter of intent, out of him. They needed to get some kind of napkin agreement that Nick was doing it. And I believe that the Spectrovision CEOs, which would have been, Frodo, along with Josh and Daniel Noah, drove from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, cornered Nick in a bar, dialed my phone number on a cell phone, and handed it to him. And I got a phone call about 3 a.m. in France from Nick in a bar in Las Vegas. The only thing he wanted to know about was about whether or not there was going to be a hot pink mantis in the movie. It was like an incoherent sort of 5-minute conversation about this hot pink mantis. I remember after the phone call, I walked outside and sat in the garden, had a smoke, and looked at the stars and thought, well, what the hell was that about? Then I got some FaceTime with Nick about 2 weeks later, and we got back in touch. Second time round, the only thing he wanted to talk about again was the hot pink mantis. And at which point I've got back to Spectre, and it's like, okay, I think he wants to do the movie, but there's going to have to be a hot pink mantis in this film, which worked in my favor because I was able to get a bit more money on the VFX in order to put the necessary mutant insect into the film, which would have become a deal breaker. And Nick agreed to do it, which was got the film made. Nick only had 4 weeks available out of the next 2 years or whatever. Those 4 weeks were starting with the last week in January, and then the first 3 weeks in February, which at that time gave us something like 6 weeks of prep time. But the 6 weeks of prep fell over Christmas and New Year, and we had to be ready by the last week in January if we were going to get it done any time at all. And given that it was December, January, it was simply impossible to shoot it in either France or in New England. In proper Lovecraft country, everything was under snow. Even Savannah, Georgia, was under snow. We looked everywhere to try and find somewhere which could pass as the Gardner farm in late summer, early fall, which is the harvest time setting of the story. For this reason, we ended up in the most southwesterly point in Europe, which was Sintra, Portugal, mostly because it was the only place where we could find deciduous vegetation, where there were still leaves on the trees, and we had a chance of tying peaches and fruit to the trees and making it look like it was it was still late summer. And then we had 6 weeks to basically build a New England style farmhouse, complete with red barn and well sweep and the whole thing, and to bring in the alpacas, to also find the other cast members, which was a crazy race against time. Literally 3 or 4 days before principal photography, we still didn't have the lead lady, Maddie, who plays Lavinia in the film. where it was right down to the wire, where we couldn't find a young lady who was prepared to come to Sintra, Portugal in late January and do this terrifying Lovecraft movie of all these crazy people. I recall, like in King Kong, I was threatening the producers that I was just going to go into Lisbon and find the first American tourists I could come across shoplifting or from the nearest stall and say, right, do you want to be the, do you want to star in a movie opposite Nick Cage? And then we got Maddie at the last moment, and Maddie came in from off Big Eyes, which was the Tim Burton movie. She was, yes, for me, saved the whole movie. She was one of my favorite things in the film. I thought she was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I recall the first day she came straight from the airport to a cast meeting rehearsal with the rest of the Nick and the rest of the family. While we were doing the reading in the rehearsal, with which was like, hey, meet your mom, meet your dad, meet your brothers. We were also measuring her and fitting her for the wardrobe, literally, while the rehearsal was going on. And then at the end of the rehearsal, we gave her straight to the Portuguese horse master, who had to teach her how to ride, and all that was before she even hit the hotel. So it was straight in.
Proper professional, though, in all fairness. From the
Yeah,
sounds
she was
of things.
tremendous. Yeah, I was so delighted that we found her.
Yeah.
It was right down to the line, right to practically to day one. No, we weren't sure whether we would be able to pull it off on the time and money available. And after Island of Dr Moraeu, I had this stubborn conviction that I probably wouldn't make it past day one. I thought that Spectre Vision would probably have like Panos Cosmatos hidden in a cupboard or something, ready to replace me. So I was extremely gun shy and wary coming in on the movie.
Couple of last questions before we conclude the podcast. With going on to Nicolas Cage, I mean, it must have been a sigh of relief, because with Nick Cage, of course, he's an Oscar-winning actor, but he is just tuning out movies left, right, and center, and we just love it for him, because maybe he's just loves the craft. Did at any point, and I don't know why I'm asking this, but did at any point did he mention German expressionism?
Nobody probably should have done, and I'll qualify that in a moment. And, but yeah, what I do want to say about Nick is that Nick was tremendous. He was one of the nicest, sweetest people I've met in Hollywood, and just brought so much to the table. I mean, Nick was the antidote to the Island of Dr Moraeu. He was, in almost every respect, he was the opposite of what I had come to expect from the star system. I mean, every time Nick came on set, his energy just changed, transformed everything. The whole the crew was 100% on point when Nick was there. We found that we were shooting faster, thanks to Nick's energy. He was always tremendous, and on the first take, on the first run through. Usually we would take one, it would usually muff it, because it was usually our fault. He'd usually do something which we weren't quite ready for. So we'd usually get it on like take 2 or take 3. We found we were cracking through the schedule so fast that we actually shot out the entire movie one day ahead of schedule. We actually we wrapped a day early on Color Out of Space, which is something that's completely unknown to me. I was used to stars refusing to come out of their trailers, losing time whenever you had the lead man on set. But yeah, Nick was the opposite. Not only that, he stuck around when he wasn't shooting. He was very generous about his time. He was having crazy sing-alongs with the other cast members between takes. In the scene where he's where his death scene when he has to do this La Pieta thing, and his corpse is lying in Maddie's arms at the front steps of the house. Even when we're in close up on Maddie's face, it's still Nick Cage who's lying in Maddie's arms. He didn't step out and force her to do that stuff opposite a stunt double. So I give Nick absolutely full marks. He was my idea of what a dream star should be like, and he always brought a little bit more to the scene. It was always a little bit richer. There was a little bit of an improvisation, a little bit of a spin on the material, and he had a way of improving my material. He also had a great way of saying dialogue which wasn't funny and making it funny. Like he every time Nick just uses the word alpaca in the movie, we get a laugh. And I don't think that was really intended when we wrote the script, but his comic timing and his physical performance is just so spot on. Full marks to Nick, and he restored my confidence in the process.
Last question for you then, Richard, and thank you once again for coming on the podcast to talk about your career and all your experiences, and especially Welsh folklore. Absolutely love it. I had so much fun doing this. One final question for you is, how do you look back on your career?
Well, it's been pretty it's been so chaotic and surreal at this point in time. There's been a lot of crazy swings and roundabout stuff that I think at this stage it's I'm increasingly inclined towards buying into like Elon Musk's notion of simulation theory. I mean, so much of it is so crazy far-fetched, and also just so inherently surreal, horrific, and bizarre that it's hard for me to believe that that it all happened by accident. It feels like some kind of, as if the late 20th century was having some kind of perverse joke with me. But I do hope that I'll get a chance to shoot some more genuine movies before, while there's still a film industry. I haven't fully given up the hope of one day shooting something on 35mm again. The Color Out of Space was shot entirely digital on an ARRI Alexa, and getting used to the new world. But some part of me wishes that I could still be shooting 35mm widescreen anamorphic.
Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalised keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewellery, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valedjewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valedjewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248.